Good morning, Rachel.
Good morning.
Good morning. So we are, as I mentioned, next week is going to be the last week before Gimel Tammuz. And we'll have different classes and explaining what it's about, things that the Rebbe said, and so on. But what I wanted to talk about today and tomorrow, because Thursday and Friday we don't have classes, to just go over, I gave out a sheet with 5 dates on it. This is a very historic time in Lubavitch of our generation. I mean, there's Yutas Kislev, there's other dates which are connected to the Alter Rebbe, the Mittler Rebbe. These are all dates connected to us. And I want to go through what it's all about. And this is what's going on in Chabad all over the world. They're now focusing on these 5 dates. One date was behind us, that's the 15th of Sivan. So that's the day that the previous Rebbe was arrested. And whoever is able to read the book, A Prince in Prison, it's an English translation of the Frierdiker Rebbe's own writings describing probably a fraction of what he went through in the jail and his arrest. But the arrest took place at night. It was like after midnight, and it was the 15th of Sivan. Normally, you would relate to this day as a very sad day because this is the day that he was arrested, and he was arrested by Jews. And worse than that, these were Jews who came from Lubavitch families. And they became sworn communists. They became important people in the movement called Yavsektia, which is the Jewish section of communists. And they were worse than the communists. They were more vicious and violent than the communists themselves. And their intention was that very night to Chas v'Shalom execute the Frierdiker Rebbe. That night they arrested 12 other leaders of different religions, and every one of them was shot to death that night. And that was the plan. And the Frierdiker Rebbe describes how so-called Ashgacha Pratis, he went down the wrong hallway, ended up in the wrong place, and as a result of that, he wasn't executed, and then later he was released from jail. So normally this should be a sad day, but it's interesting, the Rebbe, who always tells us to look at the other side of the coin, says that actually it's a happy day. How could you say such a thing? The Rebbe is already in Mashiach's times, but the Rebbe says that now when we look back in retrospect, that the arrest of the Frierdiker Rebbe ended with him being released from jail. And as a result of him being released from jail, that was a message to all the Jews in Russia that it is legal to study Torah and to do Yiddishkeit. And it's just people that are fighting them. It's not really part of the legal system. And not only that, but as a result of that, the Frierdiker Rebbe left Russia and eventually came to America. And from here, it began to spread Hasidus and Yiddishkeit globally like never before in the history. And as a result of that, this was the final preparation for Mashiach. So it's like planting a seed, the Rebbe says. When you plant a seed, someone who knows nothing about seeds would be very sad. Look what he did. He took seeds and threw them in the ground and just wasted them. But we know that it's for the purpose of the tree growing. And being that it's for the purpose of the tree growing, we don't even look at putting the seed in the ground as something sad. It's part of a process of a big, beautiful tree with fruits growing. So the Rebbe said we have to look back now at that date. It's a beginning of a process which is leading up to a big miracle and something which would bring tremendous strength to Yidden forever. That's the 15th of Sivan. So that's when he was arrested. When he was released from jail, it's connected to 3 dates. And I'll go into that soon, 3, 4, and 5. But before that, I want to talk about the 28th of Sivan. The 28th of Sivan is a date that we really didn't know about in Lubavitch until 1987. And that's the day that the Rebbe came to New York, to America. And it wasn't just the Rebbe arrived in America, this was a date that could be marked as the day the Rebbe's life was saved from the Nazis. And again, to make a long story short, because there's a lot of details to this, the Rebbe was in France at the time, and he was in Paris, and the Germans were coming towards Paris, and they started to conquer Paris, and the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin left Paris. They went to a place called Vichy, where over there officially Jews were protected. But then that was coming to an end, and the Rebbe was, every effort was being made here from New York. The Friedrich Rebbe was already here in America, and he had lawyers working with the top people in Washington, and there was just every effort that was made was rejected, and took a long time, more than a year, until they finally gave the Rebbe permission to come in. Imagine a time when millions of Jews are being murdered, and there's one Jew that wants to come in, and they're fighting it. Not enough reason why he should come and why should we accept him. Eventually, the Rebbe got permission to leave to Portugal, and then from Portugal, the Rebbe would go to America. It's interesting. After the Rebbe got permission to go from Portugal, he had a ticket to get on a boat. There was a telegram that came from the Friedrich Rebbe. The telegram said, "Do not take the boat that you plan to take," after all the effort. So the Rebbe, of course, canceled the trip. And later, that boat was captured by the Italians. So it was a mess, and Open Ruach HaKodesh for the Friedrich Rebbe. Now, he needed a ticket for the next boat, and he didn't have a ticket. So there was a family here in New York. His name was Bistritsky. Whoever was in Tzfas knows the Rebbe there, Rabbi Bistritsky. So he had in-laws that were in France, and they had a ticket to go, but they couldn't get permission to leave. So he, knowing how much the Friedrich Rebbe was broken from the fact that the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin can't get out, he offered to give those two tickets to the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin. And that's in fact how they got on the boat. It's interesting, the Rebbe told this person, Bistritsky, that whenever he wants to come into the Rebbe to speak to him, the doors are open. Because basically he gave the Rebbe the tickets to get out. And the Rebbe went from there. It was time of war, so going in the water was in general was a miracle. And the Rebbe came here. The date that he arrived was the 28th of Sivan. And it's interesting that the Friedrich Rebbe didn't go to the boat to greet them because physically he was in a wheelchair, he was physically weak. And he nevertheless gave instructions to all the Chassidim to go greet the Rebbe. And all the yeshiva students should leave yeshiva and go greet the Rebbe. And I heard myself, one of the older Chassidim from that time, that when they told the Friedrich Rebbe they're going to the boat, how they're going to recognize the Rebbe. So the Friedrich Rebbe said, you'll see someone who has absolute knowledge in Bavli, Yerushalmi, Sifra, Sifri, Mechilta, Bavli, Kabbalah, Chassidus. He went through the whole gamut, and he wears his hat down. So you know that's the Rebbe. So basically, he described the Rebbe as someone who is a giant, but presents himself as somebody very simple. And the Rebbe did not meet his son-in-law and daughter, I think they say for 3 days or 2 days. The official reason was that the Friedrich Rebbe was so emotional that he had to wait to calm down before he met them. And when the Rebbe came, the first Farbrengen that the Rebbe made, it was the Friedrich Rebbe was the Rebbe at the time, but the Farbrengen amongst Chassidim was actually on Gimel Tammuz, on that day. And he spoke about the halacha that it says there are 4 people that have to thank Hashem and bring a korban of thanksgiving. One who goes through the desert, one who crossed an ocean, one who was let out of jail, and one who was sick and became well. And he explained how this refers to the neshama coming down to this world. And the neshama goes through 4 challenges. Some challenges are compared to an ocean. Some challenges are compared to an illness. Some challenges are compared to a desert. And some challenges are compared to a jail. And they've explained it spiritually. And of course, part of his thanksgiving for being saved. What happened in 1987 was that they started to print at that time the letters of the Friedrich Rebbe. And in the letters, there's a lot of exchange to lawyers and people in Washington, begging them, demanding of them, work faster, faster. Every day is the danger becomes bigger and bigger. And actually, you probably know that the Friedrich Rebbe had a daughter and son-in-law that did get killed by the Nazis. Her name was Shendel. She was killed by Shayna. She was killed by the Nazis, and her husband was killed by the Nazis. So the Friedrich Rebbe has these letters, and then there's a letter where he writes to the lawyer, I want to let you know the good news that today, the 28th of Sivan, my son-in-law and daughter arrived. So that's how we knew the date. But the Chassidim knew the date, they decided to make a big Farbrengen in 770. And in those days, when there was a big Farbrengen somewhere, they would go up to the Rebbe by the Rebbe's Farbrengen, and the Rebbe would give them mashka, l'chaim, vodka to distribute by the Farbrengen. And they had to announce what it's about. So he got up and announced, his name was Rabbi Harlik, should live and be well. He got up and he announced, and he said, there's going to be a big Farbrengen 770 on the 28th of Sivan, celebrating the fact that the Rebbe came to America. The Rebbe smiled and said, Ish Ubeisei. Ish Ubeisei is words from Chumash, where it says, and these are the names of the Jews that came to Egypt. Ish Ubeisei means the men and their families and their wives. So he was meant to say, he announced again, the Rebbe and the Rebbitzin both came to America. He had to re-announce it. And then from that year, every year when they announced it, they made the same announcement. So what's interesting about this date, which shows us clearly that something heavenly, in 1947, this is 1941. In 1947, the Rebbe left America, went to France. It was Rebbitzin Chana. His mother came out of Russia, wherever she was, and came to France. And now the Rebbe went to France to greet her and help her come to America. What day did the Rebbe come to America with Rebbitzin Chana? 28th of Sivan, the same exact day, 7 years later. So obviously, there's definitely a connection between coming to that day. In 1991, the Rebbe gave everyone this booklet. It was in a plastic with dollars for tzedakah. And the Rebbe handed it to every man, woman, child, infant. And why that year? That year was 50 years from when the Rebbe arrived in America. And it's all about this date. Sichos and Maimarim related to this date. Happens to be that this year is 80 years since the Rebbe came. 1991 was 50, and 5781 is 80 years. And the numbers are very significant, as you know. But I just want to say a few words of how the Rebbe explains in the Sikha, what is the significance of coming to America? What I'm going to explain now, the Rebbe explains mainly regarding the previous Rebbe. The previous Rebbe came to America. That was in 1940, a year earlier. And the Rebbe spoke about this numerous times and said the following. There's two things. One is Gashmius and one is Ruchnius. The Gashmius, the Frierdiker Rebbe, was saved from the Nazis. When the Nazis bombarded Poland, the Frierdiker Rebbe was there. And miraculously, he was able to escape Poland and go to Riga, to Latvia. And when he went, there were already buildings were falling and people were unfortunately laying in the streets dead. It was a horrific scene. And miraculously, there's a long story about that, how he was saved. Went to Riga, and at that time the Nazis didn't reach Latvia yet. And 3 months later, he came to America, and he came to America in the month of Adar. So the Rebbe explains that he's coming to America, everything's Vashgacha Pratis, but there's more to it. And you probably heard the term, and I just want to explain that a little bit better, the way that Rebbe explains it in the Sikha. That coming to America was that the Rebbe and the headquarters and the source of spreading Chassidus and everything else came to the lower part of the globe. Now, if it's a globe, how can it be higher and lower? It's a circle. It's something round. The answer is when we talk about lower and higher, it's in context of Matan Torah. The Torah is given at Har Sinai. So Har Sinai, Eretz Yisrael, those countries, that's the higher part of the globe. And that's where Torah was and Yiddishkeit was for all the centuries until recently. And on that day, when the Frierdiker Rebbe came to America, that was the first time that the Rebbe and Chassidus and everything that goes along with it came to the lower part of the globe. And what's so significant about that? It means that this is the part of the world that hasn't been affected as much. Like Begashmis, if you're sitting in a room like we're sitting here now, and we're learning Torah every day, Maimarim and Chassidus and Sichos and Halacha, the room is a room that is elevated, is purified. We don't see it because we have some problems with our vision. It's a certain condition. And therefore we don't see it. But someone who would see would know the difference between this room and a different room. This room would be lit up, the very bright light, and a different room would be a dark room. I think I mentioned this, it was probably the other class, that the Frierdiker Rebbe and the Rebbe Rashab once were traveling. and they went through the marketplace. So the Rebbe Rashab said to the Frierdiker Rebbe, it seems that somebody once davened mincha here. Imagine, somebody once davened mincha, it had an effect on the atmosphere, and years later, the Rebbe Rashab was still able to sense, first of all, that someone did something a mitzvah. Second of all, that which mitzvah was it was davening. Third of all, that it was mincha, and the effect was still there. So imagine a place that's, since the world was created, this half of the globe, that's where all the learning and the davening, that's where the Torah was given. So of course it has an impact on the whole universe, but its primary impact is what's close by, which is the higher level of the globe, and the lower level of the globe, which never had this, is less impacted. So when the Frierdiker Rebbe came, it became reversed. This was the source, and from here it was spreading Yiddishkeit to the entire world. So the Rebbe said this was part of a preparation, the final preparation for Mashiach. How? So let me explain this the best I can, briefly. We know it says in Chassidus that this physical world is the lowest of all the worlds. And by doing Torah mitzvahs in this world, we're elevating all the worlds. And the analogy that's given is if you have a building, 10-story building, if you want to lift all the stories of this building, every floor, it should be lifted higher. How do you do that? If you lift it from the 5th floor, it won't affect the whole building. If you lift it from the 4th floor, it won't affect the whole building. The only way to have every single floor in the building lifted is you go all the way down to the bottom, and you lift the lowest floor, or maybe even the foundation itself. When you lift that, everything that's on top is lifted with it. So therefore, with the Atzilus, Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya, and on top of Atzilus, there's Keser and other worlds. But when we learn Torah mitzvahs and elevate this lowest of all the worlds, we're lifting all the worlds together with it. In this world itself, when we go to the lowest place in this world and we live that, we live this world completely in a complete way. So therefore, it is affected in a way like the world was never affected before. That we finally went to the lowest place of the lowest world, lifted it, and through that, it raised all the world, the whole entire world, and everything else that goes along with it. So that's the spiritual thing. Besides the fact that his life was saved, spiritually, it was entering a new era in sort of refining the world and preparing the world for Mashiach. That was when the Frierdiker Rebbe came in 1940. When the Rebbe came, even though it was the times of the Frierdiker Rebbe, but basically the Rebbe then took over and was the one who was in charge of the 3 main institutions of the Frierdiker Rebbe. The Frierdiker Rebbe here in America established 3 institutions. One was called Machne Yisrael, and this was an institution that was in charge of spreading Yiddishkeit to Yidden all over. One was called Kahos. This division was in charge of printing Torah books, so people should have Torah material to read. And the third category was America's Linyani Chinuch, establishing yeshivas and Talmud Torahs and all sorts of educational organizations and institutions all over. And when the Rebbe came, the Rebbe took charge. And once the Rebbe took charge, everything took off on a whole new level. And in fact, the Rebbe himself, when he refers to this date, he doesn't say, this is the date I came, or this is the date that my Rebbetzin came. The Rebbe says, this is the day that the spreading of Chassidus took on a whole new level. Because once the Rebbe came, everything started to happen in a much different way. An interesting thing to point out is that in the year 1941, I want to read to you a Sicha of the Frierdiker Rebbe, which he gave a few weeks before the Rebbe came here. And that Sicha, the Frierdiker Rebbe says, and I forgot it downstairs. Nope, here it is. So it's interesting. This is the Sicha. The Frierdiker Rebbe says like this. I'll read it. It's in Yiddish. I want to say something very open. Be open with you. It's customary that when you're getting ready for a big guest to come, you make all the preparations before. 2 weeks before, you're preparing the house, you're cleaning the house, you clean all the corners of the house. Everybody in the family is talking about the guest that's coming. All the neighbors are here about there's a guest coming. And you're constantly saying, he's coming, he's coming, he's coming. Now is the time that Mashiach is coming. We have to get ready to greet the guest. A few weeks later, the Rebbe arrives. So people look at this Sikha as a Sikha. The Frierdiker Rebbe was talking to Chassidim to be prepared for the Rebbe's coming. So two more words about the significance of the number 80 or 50 or any number. That you don't always find that people make such a big fuss about numbers. But the Rebbe, in the Rebbe's Sichas, it's always something that has tremendous significance. And also in Chassidus in general, there's a Maimarim that explain the significance of numbers. That this was 40 years, and this was 20 years, and this is 25 years, and every number corresponds to spheres and different things. But one of the ways of explaining it is something which is also found in this week's Parsha in Rashi. Rashi says, and this has to do with the Meraglim who were carrying the fruits from Eretz Yisrael. They were huge. They needed a few people to carry it together. Rashi says that when two people carry something together, how much weight can they carry? So I would normally think if I myself can lift 10 pounds and my friend could lift 10 pounds, together we can lift 20 pounds. So the Gemara says, no, together you can lift 30 pounds. Why is that? Because my strength, your strength, and then there's something new that comes about from the merger. And together we can lift more than we can each lift as individuals. So just like it applies physically, it also applies spiritually. 2 people are learning Torah, 3 people are learning Torah. When people get together, in addition to the fact each one is contributing what they could contribute, there's something new that comes about from the merger. However, depends on the number. For example, a minyan. You have 1 person davening, 2 people davening, 9 people davening. It's still not a minyan. Once you have 10, which means you have a merging of 10 people, there's something new in the room that did not exist there before. That's a result of the 10. And of course, it's connected to 10 spheres. So the same thing is with all of these kind of numbers. That year was 50 years, and we know that in Halacha, 50 is Yovel, the Jubilee year. So that means that when there's an accumulation of 50 years, there's something new here that's beyond anything that existed all the past 50 years. And it's not a result of just 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 50 altogether. But when you have 50 years together, there's something greater than 50, much greater than 50, that becomes revealed here in terms of spiritual presence or godly presence. The number 80, of course, you look on Torah, you'll find things about number 80, but maybe somebody in the room could tell me something about the number 80, maybe even something connected to Geula with 80. If you think hard, not too hard, we don't want anybody's brain to have smoke, but to try a little bit. Can I give a hint? I just said it's connected to Geula, one of them. Yeah.
You're saying the number 8?
Yeah.
Well, 7 is corresponding to like within nature, and then 8 is corresponding to beyond nature. So I would assume that 80 is the same.
Very good. That's one thing. It's not what I was thinking, but that's true. 8 corresponds to above nature, and 80 is the same thing. It's just each one consists of 10, so you have 80. Okay. Anything else? Okay, I'll give you a hint. The hint is who took the Yidden out of Mitzrayim?
Yeah, I was thinking that Moshe was 80.
Right. But Moshe took Yidden out of Mitzrayim, he was 80. And those that had the schus to be in the class that I gave on Chumash a few days ago, we learned that the code, what is the code that Moshe Rabbeinu used to identify himself as the Redeemer? Poket Pakadati, the 2 pays, 80. So over there we learned the Balaturim and says how much Geula Mitzrayim is connected to the number 80. And I'm just throwing this in, but it is 80 years, which is a very significant time. And that means it's not the way we look at it without Chassidus is, oh, the Rebbe came here 80 years ago, so, oh, it's an old story. We look at it, Chassidus the other way around. That means whatever was accomplished spiritually by the Rebbe coming here 80 years ago is now 80 times stronger than that plus. That's the way we look at it. And therefore, it's definitely a time to celebrate and to bring and so on. Plus, if you think of it, it's interesting because 80, the day Chav Ches Sivan is literally a few days before Gimel Tammuz. And the first Farbrengen that Rebbe had here was Gimel Tammuz. First Farbrengen with the Frierdiker Rebbe was on Gimel Tammuz. So now let's go into Gimel Tammuz. These are the dates that are going to be coming up. And I mean, we're going to be learning things inside, but I really want to just give this introduction so at least you're aware and part of all the activities and the celebrations that are going on all over the world. Now, Gimel Tammuz has in it two things. One that's related to the Frierdiker Rebbe, and of course the one that's related to us and our Rebbe. So with the Frierdiker Rebbe, the story of his going out of jail started with Gimel Tammuz. So like I said, when he went into jail, the intention was Rahman al-Islam, Chas v'Shalom, execution that same night. Miraculously, he was saved. And he was in jail, of course, tortured in jail. And we know the stories, thrown down a flight of stairs, metal staircase. We know the Frierdiker Rebbe was physically not well. It's all a result, the pashtas of the suffering and the torturing that he had when he was in the jail. But after the Gashmias, it was a miracle, but the Gashmias, what led to his release from jail, it was political intervention. In other words, people who had the know-how got in touch with the United States of America, the State Department, other countries like Latvia and other countries that Russia didn't want to be in conflict with them, and they were making demands that they should free the Frierdiker Rebbe. And actually, there was a chassid in Lubavitch that the Rebbe Rashab told him to come to America. And the Rebbe Rashab told him that your son will help my son. Came to America. His son ended up becoming a lawyer. And he was the lawyer that got in touch with the top people in Washington to help the Frierdiker Rebbe come out of jail. And the Frierdiker Rebbe was released from jail. What day was it? It was Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. Not Gimel Tammuz. That was Thursday. So the Frierdiker Rebbe said, so when am I going to, and he wasn't released completely. In fact, when he went out of jail, he saw the file on the desk. And on the desk it said execution, and next it crossed out, it said no. Then it said 10 years hard labor camp, crossed out, no. 3 years exile, yes, that was his verdict. That for the next 3 years, he has to be exiled to a city where he's going to be monitored and make sure that he doesn't make any trouble. So the city was called Kostroma. It was far away. So the Frierdiker Rebbe said, when am I going to arrive there? Because it's Thursday today. He said, well, you arrive there on Saturday. He said, if I'm going to arrive on Saturday, I'm not going. So they got furious because to get him out of jail was such a big fight. And they said, if you're not going, then you can't go home. Then you have to stay in jail. I'll stay in jail. Everyone understands that staying in jail in their hands, even 1 hour is dangerous. But the Frierdiker Rebbe said, I will not go. So they went back to all the people that tried to get him out and said, come on, now you have to work on making sure that he can stay in jail another few days. And they were all, they begged them, they pleaded, and they made all the effort. And like the Frierdiker Rebbe said, Baruch Hashem, I stayed in jail. Could you imagine, Baruch Hashem, that he didn't go on Shabbos. And the Rebbe once spoke about this and said, but you're not supposed to have Mesiras Nefesh. If a person's life is in danger, you're supposed to desecrate Shabbos. Don't we call doctors or Chas v'Shalom, person has to go to the hospital or eat truth that's kosher? This is saving a life. So the Rebbe explained something very beautiful because really on the surface it doesn't make any sense. You're not allowed to endanger your life for Shabbos. And the Rebbe explained this was different. This was a group of people that wanted to, God forbid, eliminate the Frierdiker Rebbe, not because of him personal, but because of what he represented. He represented Yiddishkeit. This is part of their agenda to uproot Yiddishkeit. And therefore, for them, this will be the biggest victory that he's going to be riding on Shabbos. They got the head of the Jewish people to ride on Shabbos. So therefore, in that case, he went with Mesiras Nefesh, not to. And he ended up leaving on the third day of Tammuz. And on the third day of Tammuz, when he left, people went to say goodbye at the train station, which was in itself dangerous, because anyone who was associated with the Frierdiker Rebbe was basically suspected of being involved with him. But the Frierdiker Rebbe imagined, after being in jail and being tortured, and now still continuing his sort of exile, and he's at the train station. I'll give you the gist of what he said for the people who were standing there. He started with the words, Yehi Hashem Elokeinu imanu kasher hayim avosenu ayazvenu vayirtzeinu. Hashem should be with us like he was with our forefathers. We can't compare to our forefathers. Our forefathers, our parents, they had Mesiras Nefesh. Imagine. He's saying this after coming out of jail, but we can't compare to that. But let me tell you something that my father said when the old regime was still, when the Tsar was in power. And he said these words, we didn't leave Eretz Yisrael in our own will, and we're not going to go back to Eretz Yisrael with our own will. Hashem is the one that took us out of Golus, and he's the one who will gather us together through Mashiach and bring us back to Eretz Yisrael. But this is one thing that all the nations in the world should know, that only our guf is in a situation of Golus. But the neshama is absolutely free. The neshama is not, and we're telling you openly that whatever is related to Yiddishkeit, to Torah, to mitzvahs, and even Jewish customs, we have no authority over us that's going to tell us what to do. And there's no force in the world that could be used against us. And we have to say this with the strongest ancient Jewish stubbornness, the stubbornness of thousands of years of Mesiras Nefesh. Al tigu b'Mashiachai u'b'Nevi'ai al Tereu, which means don't touch. Mashiach in this context means all our teachers and rabbis and all our children. And then the Frierdiker Rebbe basically, gave people strength to keep doing what they need to do. Again, he's being arrested for this, and this is what he gets up and says in front. They were obviously there, and they were observing all this. And this is the Mesiras Nefesh. Someone just posted Rabbi Shapiro in Florida just posted a voice note that he went to visit Russia. And they were there and they saw this woman, simple woman, and she told them, had a baby, and she said that they live in a faraway place and there's no mile there to do the bris for the child. So what people used to do was after the woman gave birth, she can't travel to Moscow. It's a very long trip. And also, she's weak, the baby's an infant. So they used to wait, even though it's more than 8 days, used to wait till the mother became stronger, the child became stronger, and then they traveled to Moscow for a bris. And she said her baby was born shortly before Yom Kippur. And she said to herself, my baby shouldn't be circumcised by Yom Kippur. Impossible. It's inconceivable. My baby has to have a bris by Yom Kippur. She picked herself up. I think she couldn't get a plane, so she decided to go by train. It was a 24-hour trip by plane. A woman who just gave birth. She took the baby, had the bris, and went right back home. And Baruch Hashem, she had that. And then when he spoke to her about what do they do there for mikveh, she said, they use the river. I said, the river, it's freezing, it's winter time. So she said, well, how else, this is Yiddishkeit, how else could you live? And when he came back from Russia, he wrote a report to the Rebbe. And he wanted to specifically write this story, and he forgot, out of all things, he forgot to write this in the report. So he called up Rabbi Groner, the Rebbe's secretary. He said, I just gave him a report and I forgot to tell the story. Let me tell it to you, and if you have an opportunity, tell it to the Rebbe. And he did, and he called him back, and he said, the Rebbe told me, give it over to the Mesiras Nefesh people here in America. Basically, saying, here in America, if you sleep a little bit less one day, it's like, wow, I'm a serious nefesh. I got up early today. The old Russian Hasidim used to call us. They used to say, what they used to call us Americana chokoladnikis, which means the Americans are raised on chocolate bars. And when we have to go on a talucha to another neighborhood and it's raining, everybody's like, "Whoa, we're going with serious nefesh. It's raining and we're going with serious nefesh." So they said, give it over to the American Mesiras Nefesh people. What kind of Mesiras Nefesh people have? So the Frierdiker Rebbe went out of jail on the 3rd of Tammuz, but he wasn't out of the woods yet because he had to be in this place for the next 3 years. And every week he had to come to the office to register and show them that he's still there. The first week that he went to the office to register was the 12th day of Tammuz, which also was the Frierdiker Rebbe's birthday. When he came to register, they said, "We have some news for you. You're free. You can go home." And that was the 12th of Tammuz. What's the 13th of Tammuz? That day that they told him that you're free was a Russian national holiday. So the office was closed. They couldn't give him the legal documents that he's free. So he had to wait another day for the 13th of Tammuz. So as a result of that, we have 2 days that's Yontif, the 12th of Tammuz and the 13th of Tammuz. And they tell the story about a chassid who lived in a city called Neville, that he heard the Frierdiker Rebbe went out of jail on the 3rd of Tammuz, but he didn't hear the details. He thought he was totally free. And therefore he was farbrengen every night, until Yud Beis Tammuz. Then he found out that the Frierdiker Rebbe was actually in a city and he only got freed, but he had no idea. He just farbrengen all the way through until he actually went out of jail. Anyway, I want to elaborate on this a little bit tomorrow. And then after that, we'll learn some things that relate to Gimel Tammuz. And there's a lot of questions I know and a lot of issues that people have not clear with. We'll try to clear it up. And the main thing is we want the Rebbe himself to be here and clear everything up. There'll be no more questions. And I'm reminding you, everybody, please remember, whoever you know that does belong to the school and to the class, that tomorrow there'll be a treat. And it's really something amazing. I guarantee you, you won't regret watching this, to have the virtual reality based on English.
Have you already done it?
Yeah.
You can't see through those though, right?
What?
You can't see.
No, it's actually, you're totally into it. Like you said, you fall over, you forget where you are.
Exactly. So cool. Wow.
Very welcome.
Grandma was just-
Yes,
Thank you.
welcome.
Tammuz went after the Rebbe came, the Frierdiker Rebbe gave for bringing on back. It was like the first one with their presence.
Yeah.
Oh, the Rebinson was also there. Or just-
Probably because that farbrengen was the Frierdiker Rebbe used to farbrengen in his apartment, in his house. So she probably was there in the other room. Yeah.
Oh, it wasn't like the Fabringens the Rebbe had.
No, it was smaller.
It was like a private.
Private. It was smaller because first of all, the whole Lubavitch was very small in those days. And second of all, because of the Frierdiker Rebbe's health, they couldn't have so many people in the room.
When the Rebbe would give Fabringen, would women be in the women's section of 770?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, the big farbrengens. There was
Yeah.
a time when the Rebbe's farbrengens was upstairs. And over there's no women's section.
uh-huh.
But whenever the farbrengen was downstairs, the women were there. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Not only the women were there, but many times by the farbrengens, the Rebbe would distribute dollars, and the Rebbe would give dollars to Rabbi Weinberg that was upstairs to the women and distributed it.